For my major final project, the idea was to try and display the most common mental illnesses, putting the reality of mental illnesses out in such a way that everybody can understand. Because on social media there is a huge debate between people who don't suffer from them and as to what the conditions actually are. And our idea was to put that through photography and make sure people understood, because it gets romanticised a lot on social media. So we were trying to explain the reality of them and show what it's actually like. So the mental illnesses we were going to do was schizophrenia, dissociative identity disorder, also known as multiple personality disorder, anorexia, and anxiety. For our inspiration, we used unknown photographers' work from Pinterest, and we thought we'd use that because it does interpret the mental illnesses properly. Like for the schizophrenia, with this one, it kind of looks like that is her, but the rest is what is in her head, and that is kind of what we have done for the final outcome. And with the depression, we didn't do that for the final outcome, but for the depression, it feels like you're alone and everybody's trying to reach out with you, hence why the hand's at the top. So it's just kind of like everyone's against you and stuff. With the planning, it did go quite to plan, because we planned it all out and made sure it was all correct, and we made sure we had all of the correct equipment. And for the final outcome, we did use a model called Stevie Lee, and with this one we were covering depression, schizophrenia, multiple personality, bipolar, anorexia and anxiety, but we did only use schizophrenia, multiple personality and anorexia for the final outcome. For the schizophrenia, we did take multiple photos. The main photo was of the model sat on a chair with the head on the hands, but we used the opposite photo when she was smiling. We edited the other images in, and it looked as if they were reaching out to her, and to create as if on the sample we were just trying to recreate it, where the main part of the image was the actual person and the other ones were kind of in her head. For the multiple personality, we took 3 separate photos and put them together using Photoshop, and we used layers and other techniques throughout Photoshop that were available to us. We tied rope from the ceiling and attached them to her hands, and we did this because people with this illness can feel like they're being controlled, and they cannot control their feelings and actions or emotions towards people. This is one of the ones we used for the final outcome. For anorexia, we had the model in white top and black pants. The model, she was then stood up straight with her hands tied like handcuffs with a tape measure. We did this so the model looks trapped and can't escape from the mental illness. When the photo was being taken, we made sure the background had no shadows, so when we wanted to complete the image, it wasn't too difficult. And during the editing stage, we made the background pure white and used a layer mask to make the model look slightly translucent and to make it more interesting. And for all of these, we added a textured overlay to make it fit the atmosphere more. When it come to doing the samples, we used myself for them. So we weren't bringing a model in twice, because that's not fair, as it could be, they could feel like it's wasting their time because they get nothing out of it, and it seems to them as we are unprofessional. these two are for the schizophrenia. Like, we did experimentations. With this one, we had the exposure quite low, and we had the shutter setting to really low, so we could, when we moved, it made that blurring motion on the photo. And then for this one, we did a similar thing, but instead of having the shutter speed quite low, we just used the same photo twice and copied them to make it so it was kind of shaky. And then we added grain over the top of it and white noise. This is the anxiety one, where we made the background translucent and also the model translucent, if you can see, because her, like, parts of her hair is white and her arms, just because we thought it'd make it more interesting as it's just pure white, when mainly things to do with mental illnesses, they're quite dark and the atmosphere is quite scary in a way. So we used the tape measure and we made sure the background was pure white, and we made sure it was kind of contrasting with the top and the pants. With the multiple personality one in the samples, we took the 3 separate photos like was in the description, and we edited them all together to make it look like this. And then we did use string to tie them from the ceiling, and then we added we made it look blurry to see how we thought that would look, just to see what the effect was. And then we also added a darker background, well, overlay onto the top. For the final outcome, we tried to recreate the photos we created for the samples. And then with this one, well, with these two, these are what we used for the anorexia. With this one, we made the 2 images go into one. Like, we took 2 images and then we overlaid them and made the top one. We changed the opacity to 60, so you could just see the one underneath a bit more, so it looked a bit, so it made it more interesting as you could see both images and together. And then after we had finished editing, we did add a textured overlay to this one and added that to the final outcome. With this one, we did a similar thing, but we duplicated the 2 images and put them behind each other and changed the opacity to make it so it looks shaky again with the schizophrenia. And then we used the smudge tool to make it so it looked smudged and kind of static in a way. With the multiple personality, we did a similar thing to what we did for the sample. We recreated it, but we made it more dark in a sense, as to fit our theme of mental illnesses. And we used the model for this one, and we made sure she was wearing white pants and white top and black pants to make it so it looked contrasting. And then we changed the brightness of the background and then added a textured overlay over the top. For the schizophrenia, we did the same thing, but this time we had the person on the chair smiling, so it makes it look like that is her, and then all of these are in her head and nobody can see them, so she's like putting on a mask for everybody else to see. I think for the final project, it did go to plan. And it did go the way I wanted it to go, because it was what I wanted to do, and it was how I went about it that made it happen. I made it so it was my own project. I made it so it fit my standards, and I'm proud of how it went, and I'm happy. A few things did change, like we The original idea was to go to a factory, but we decided to use the studio as it gave us a better chance to edit them at a better quality, as at a factory we might not have been able to edit them the way we had done, as it was in the studio and there wasn't as much going on in the background. I think the target audience is still 14 to 20-year-olds, as they are the people who are most affected by social media and the things that are put on it, and our aim was to show them how it is in other people's minds without it being romanticised. So, yeah. This is my final outcome.